It's not a problem. All right, I'm gonna start from here. Okay, so today we'll be talking about mergers and acquisitions, um, which has not been quite covered in your conventional classes as well. We don't really dedicate one whole chapter for mergers and acquisitions in all of our other classes. Therefore, it's worthwhile for me to take you through some of the basics of mergers and acquisitions. Yeah. Um, so before I start, yeah, I would like to check on everyone's understanding on what's the difference between a merger and an acquisition. Could someone please raise your voice, yeah, so that you can answer my question? What is the difference? Or well, from the name itself, we can tell what the difference is. But what is the striking difference between the two? You would say that strikes you most when you talk about a merger and an acquisition? What differentiates between the two?
Ma'am, can I try?
Sure, Fabrina.
Yeah, mergers is the combination between two institutions or company. Meanwhile, the acquisitions is one company acquisite the other company to be one of them.
Okay, so mergers is like two companies making a deal. Yes, Fabrina, more or less that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
two companies making a deal so that they combine into one entity. As for acquisition, or the easy word for it is one usually dominant company buying another usually less dominant company. So usually the target company is smaller in size, yeah, and basically they become the target of a purchase of another company, yeah. um, what we're most interested in today is actually in acquisitions, yeah, because there are a lot of issues actually in both mergers and acquisitions. There are a lot of issues that should be dealt with using the Sharia perspective. But when we talk about acquisitions, it becomes even more concerning because acquisitions, yeah, because it's an activity of purchase, yeah, it can be voluntarily, yeah, or it can be hostile. When it's hostile, it means that the target did not voluntarily agreed to be purchased, but because of market mechanism, because the target is traded on the stock market, then it becomes possible for raiders, yeah, we would say, we call them raiders, those companies who take part in hostile takeovers have the opportunity to do a hostile takeover, yeah. And this situation becomes quite messy sometimes, yeah, even it really requires a strong uh, uh, legal foundation as well as ethical foundation, and this is where the Sharia finance role becomes monumental, yeah. um, So in a merger, yeah, the idea itself, yeah, the idea of a merger itself is of course wonderful. Yeah, there's nothing fundamentally incorrect or uh, unacceptable in the Sharia perspective. Yes, the Sharia principle regarding a merger or an acquisition. Yeah, it's basically a growth strategy. Yeah. Um, um, and it says that when done correctly, mergers and acquisitions can create a synergy where 1 plus 1 does not equal to 2, but it equals to 4. Yeah. And the value of, because 4 minus 2, there's an extra 2. Yeah. Because 1 plus 1 should be 2, but then 1 plus, it becomes, because of synergy, it becomes 1 plus 1 equals 3. So that additional 1 point comes from the effect of synergy. Yeah. just like they can capitalize on different areas of strengths such as marketing, finance, and etc. Yeah. um, of course, the most relevant example would be what has happened, yeah, to Bank Syariah Indonesia, yeah, which was previously Bank Syariah Mandiri, BNI Syariah, and BRI Syariah, which is now merged under one flag, which is BRI Syariah. Yeah, the idea is of course wonderful. It has been around. It has been around. The idea has been around for quite some time, since 2013. Yeah, Pak Dahlan Iskan was one of the apa, initiators of the idea. Yeah, the idea is basically the biggest idea is basically to get a stronger foothold for Sharia financing in the global financial system, basically. Yeah, right now we start with gaining domination in the local or the domestic banking industry. Yeah, uh, now because of the merger, now we're in terms of asset, which rank do we come in Indonesia in the domestic banking market? In terms of asset, Bank Syariah Indonesia is now which rank in terms of asset size? Is berapa besar? Terbesar? Ranking berapa? Terbesar? Do you know? After the merger, yeah, Bank Syariah Indonesia has now become what rank in terms of the size of asset, yeah, in Indonesia? Ada yang tahu? Halo, ada yang tahu? It becomes seventh largest in Indonesia. Yeah, which is of course it's good. It's a good thing. Yeah, because in banking, yeah, the bigger the asset you have, the bigger capital you have, the bigger asset you have, then uh, the more opportunities you can tap into. Yeah, and another one of the biggest agendas or one of the biggest motivations for mergers for Bank Syariah Indonesia was, of course, uh, uh, to expand the customer base, yeah, especially dedicated towards small businesses and big scale projects. Those are the two areas that especially financial Islamic banks are lacking in. So small businesses and big scale projects. Why? Because they're risky. Yeah, they're risky. And what's the issue is with risk? Well, when it comes, we understand that when it comes to Islamic banks, risk becomes an issue because right now, yeah, the the majority of the majority of the financing side is using the murabaha concept. Yeah, but through the merging or the consolidation, yeah, the gaining of power, yeah, in terms of asset, in terms of dana pihak ketiga tentunya, in terms of technology, in terms of funding supply, and so on and so forth, then we might be able to restructure our financing and give more room for mudarobah. Yeah, because now we are able to bear more risk. Yeah, because we're stronger, we have more buffer, so on and so forth. Yeah. So, and another big agenda is to expand or increase digital competencies. Yeah, because it is now a digital economy, and banks should capitalize more on digital or IT based technologies, or IT, yeah, in information technology. And by merging in of Islamic banks, then this becomes more doable for them. Um, so if done correctly, uh, a merger can be beneficial to shareholders of all companies, yeah, involved, yeah, because we need to be reminded that at the end of the day, remember, yeah, what is the main objective of a corporation? It's to increase the shareholder value, right? So at the end of the day, it must be uh, our major concern. Yeah, that it does not destroy value. Yeah. Um, okay. So ethical issues mostly most like relate to proper evaluation. Okay, and so when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, especially acquisitions, yes, especially in acquisitions, one big concern becomes how much should you pay for the target company? Yeah. So how much should you pay for it? Yeah. Is the price that we see today on the market a fair price? Well, of course, it must be, or is it overvalued? Yeah. So so here it says on the next slides, while pricing is based on valuation exercise, yeah, we understood in your other classes that there are valuation activities. It could be fundamental valuation, it could be a trend analysis or whatever. You could use multiples, you could use cash flows, but basically you have to come up with a technique to do a valuation and eventually come up with the value of a company. uh, what becomes a yellow light, yeah, atau a concern in the Sharia perspective, what becomes a concern in the Sharia perspective is is the difference between the price at which the transaction is executed and the fair price, according to valuation experts. Yeah, it's not good to be extremely overpriced. Yeah, it makes it unethical. Yeah, because when the acquirer pays for a target company at an extremely or not at an extremely overpriced state, who do you think loses the most? Itu yang rugi siapa menurut Anda? When an acquirer, yeah, for example, at the time in 2006, the world was shocked because Google made an announcement that it would acquire or it would buy YouTube, yeah, or eBay, yeah, around those years as well. They also wanted to acquire PayPal, yeah. Okay, so so who do you think when you overpay something, meaning the target company is too expensive compared to its fundamentals, according to experts, who do you think is at a loss? Yang dirugikan siapa? When a buyer, let's say Google, at the time people were saying YouTube is overpriced. They bought it at a whopping $2.6 billion at that time. Yeah. So they said that it was overpriced. So when Google pays for YouTube at an overprice, meaning terlalu mahal, who's at a loss? Yang paling dirugikan tuh siapa? Siapa? Hello? Can you hear my voice, everyone? Hello? Okay. Banu, Miftakur Rahman. Banu? Hello? Yes. So who do you think is at a loss? Okay. Well, in Google, there's the managers, there's the employees, there's the cleaning service, there's the there's the market analysts, there's the shareholders, there's the government who governs Google. Who do you think is the most at loss? The stakeholders of they are the stakeholders of Google's, but which party do you think is the most at loss? Is losing the most? Dari yang saya sebutkan tadi, berbagai stakeholdernya Google. I agree with you. Google is at a loss for overpaying it, but Who? Which stakeholder of Google is at a loss? The funds manager? Okay. Who else has a different opinion? Ada yang punya pendapat lain? Anyone? Demi Putri.
Yes, ma'am.
Betul,
I think
Google yang dirugikan, but who in Google atau stakeholdernya Google siapa yang paling dirugikan? When you overpay YouTube.
when I overpay you.
When Google overpays YouTube, who's at a loss the most? Of course, everyone's at a loss, but who's at a loss the most, theoretically?
Belum kebayang sih, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay. Saya kasih satu lagi kesempatan. Ada yang lain yang bisa coba?
I think Google stockholder.
Okay, whose voice is this?
Rizky.
Of course, Rizky. Yes. Who is? Yes. Why? Why do you think Rizky?
Because it's their money.
Yeah, because they're the owners of the company. Saya catat ya, namanya Rizky ya.
Yes.
They are the owners of the company. Yeah, if they're the owners of the company, it means that it's their money that is being employed to overpay YouTube. Yeah, if you sebentar ya. Kalau ada pertanyaan yang beberapa orang tidak bisa jawab, but then someone answers correctly, they deserve a star. Yeah. Okay. Of course. Saya tadi mau ngomong apa ya? Yeah. Okay. It's the shareholders. Banu said the fund manager. You mean maybe the financial manager, the one who made a decision, the one who did the company valuation for YouTube and then made the decision to buy the YouTube? Not really. They get paid on a monthly basis. Yeah. Meanwhile, the money that you use is actually coming from the retained, most of them are coming from the retained earnings, which could be distributed as dividends or could be retained as the capital of the company, which goes into the shareholder's pocket. Yeah. So when you overpay something, the shareholder could potentially be hurt. Yeah. That's why the discussion of mergers and especially acquisitions becomes crucial, because a lot of times it is at the cost of shareholders, which should be our main concern, which should be the number one person or the number one party whose objectives or whose interests should be kept in mind. Yeah. So in the past, there were acquisitions made by Google and YouTube, as well as eBay by PayPal, which everyone basically sneered on. Everyone basically said, everyone basically said that they were overpaying them, but it turns out that they were extremely successful acquisitions. Yeah. So these two are just successful examples. There are other unsuccessful examples, and we will look at why they could be successful and why they could not be successful. Yeah. And just recently, Microsoft made a decision to buy LinkedIn. Yeah, there's a typo there. Yeah, we don't know yet how that's going to work out. Yeah, because a lot of people are very skeptic. Yeah, because Microsoft has in the past made mistakes. Yeah, in purchasing these .com companies. Yeah, but we'll see about LinkedIn. Yeah, how they perform by purchasing LinkedIn. So in according to Sharia scholars, it is very important that we seek the opinion of experts. Yeah, in obtaining the value of a company. Yeah, because the difference between the value of the company and how much and the value that it's trading in the market is termed as huben, yeah, and it can be unethical, yeah, but then it becomes a challenge to determine how much is too much, because sometimes the difference is just due to sentiment, market sentiment, which is to some extent it's normal. You cannot always get it right. You cannot always guess the right price. Yeah. So they try to come up with exact figures, yeah, to be termed as excessive and therefore prohibited. Yeah. So it's about ikhtiar, yeah. It's our best attempt to try to limit what could be excessive. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about. So now let's talk more about acquisitions. Yeah, or another word for it is takeovers. Yeah, because it's such an interesting phenomenon and also prone to unethical practices, then it's worthwhile for us to dedicate some attention towards it. Yeah. So ethics of hostile takeovers. Right now, we take the perspective of the raiders, yeah, or the perspective of the acquirer, yeah, the buyer, yeah, the company who buys another company, a target company. So there's an acquirer, and then the acquirer or buyer or raider, and then there's the target company. Yeah. So now we take the perspective of the raiders or the buyers. Yeah. There is a theory of mergers and acquisitions. It's called the hubris theory. Yeah, this becomes one of the reasons why M&As exist. Yeah, and it doesn't have a place in Islam, in the Sharia principle. Yeah, so basically, it says that the basis of the mergers and acquisitions is nothing more than unbridled greed. So it's corporate greed. Yeah, we have to remember that on paper, on stock markets, they may look like they're companies. Yeah, on paper it says eBay, it says Google, it says Microsoft, it says Quaker, but you have to remember that actually behind these names are normal human beings. Yeah, with emotions. Yeah, with sentiments, positive sentiments, negative sentiments, with past experiences, with wants, with needs, with dreams and aspirations. Yeah, there are people behind these companies. Yeah, and sometimes these mergers and acquisitions, it's when things get personal. Yeah, um, sometimes managers in this case, yeah, they want to have more corporate control. Yeah, they want to become bigger. Yeah, because when they manage a bigger company, yeah, a bigger company, then it looks good on their CV. It's good for their experience. Yeah, past research, a lot of research has been done, and it turns out that the reason why hubris actually does exist in the M&A scene, yeah, it's actually not the manager's fault themselves. Actually, the society also supports the hubris culture. The way that the news is presented, the way that managers or CEOs, executives are introduced, it's as if we glorify the fact that they lead a bigger corporations. So the bigger their business is, the more prestigious they are. Therefore, it sort of feeds on their greed to be able to control a bigger size of a company. Now, when this is the case, of course, it becomes dangerous because it might cloud their judgment as to what is the true value of the target company. Yeah, and others. Yeah, because when you decide to do a merger, when you decide to do an acquisition, yeah, there's a lot of things that you need to be sure that you can gain as a benefit. Yeah, like in the case for Islamic Bank, it's clear what we want. Yeah, you also need to be clear whether you want to capitalize on technology or Do you want to capitalize on the same market base, even though you sell different products, but you both are targeting at the youth market? Yeah, except one sells soft drinks and another one sells snacks, but you share the same market. Therefore, there's a benefit to merging. Yeah, but because hubris is present, then it could be the case where this judgment is clouded. Yeah, you just want to get bigger, period. Yeah, so there are two examples of high profile mergers or acquisitions in the past that has gone down the drain. Yeah, that has failed miserably, and a lot of researchers and a lot of scholars basically claim that one of the biggest reason of the downfall of these acquisitions are hubris. Yeah, the maybe you're more familiar with eBay and Skype. Yeah, eBay and Skype didn't perform well. Yeah, it's basically due to hubris. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now let's see. Okay. Value destroying actions. Yeah, there's another. This is another point that we need to discuss about mergers and acquisitions. There's also a practice called leveraged buyout. Yeah, this is the case where raiders, yeah, basically, well, it doesn't have to be a leveraged buyout yet, but basically, there are a lot of times when raiders, especially this was very popular in the 1980s. Yeah, and then it gained even more popularity in the 1990s, but then afterwards it's sort of basically dies down the popularity. Basically, what they do is they're so greedy. Yeah, they're so greedy to buy another company, but they don't actually have the money. So what they do is they sell junk bonds. What is a junk bond? Who knows what a junk bond is? Artinya apa? Junk bond. Ada yang tahu?
Bond kelas C, ma'am.
Ya, biasanya BB ke bawah ya. And what does it mean? Artinya apa? Iqbal. Karakteristiknya apa?
Mungkin dia tidak memberikan return yang pasti, ma'am. Atau returnnya kecil.
That is actually the complete opposite of the answer.
Oh, berarti dia memastikan gitu, ma'am.
Not really, but that's not really the answer. Thank you though, Iqbal. Ada lagi yang mau coba?
I want to try answer.
Yes, Melania. Yes. What is a junk bond?
Maybe that carry a higher risk or default.
Yes. Therefore, it promises you what? Because it's a risky bond. Yeah, it's a company. It's junk. It's very risky. It's
Way
startups.
investor maybe.
Yes. Yes, Melania. Because
yes.
it's high. Because
Way
it's
investor interest payment.
of course. Yeah, but what about the interest payments?
Maybe
How do they
promise a
attract?
higher return, ma'am.
Of course. Yeah. The only way that a junk bond or a startup company with no history whatsoever, yeah, you don't know who this is. You only read about it in the news once or twice. You know a little bit about the founder, but his track record isn't really proven. Yeah. So it's high risk. You're taking a risk, and you as an investor, and the only way that you're willing to buy these bonds is if you're being offered a very high return. Yeah, so be careful with jargon such as high yield bonds. Yeah, it sounds good, but basically these are junk bonds. Yeah, it's high risk bonds, of course. Otherwise, the market doesn't operate if you are high risk and you don't promise a high return. Yeah, do people still buy it? Yes, of course. Some people. It really depends on your investment profile. Yeah, your risk profile basically. Yeah, so there are a lot of raiders, there are a lot of companies who don't have the money. So what they do is They sell bonds. Yeah. Why don't they have, why do they sell junk bonds? Well, because they don't have enough money, means they're not a stable company, basically. But they want to buy another company, take the risk of buying another company, and then they sell junk bonds. Yeah. And in the past, these junk bonds are also called low grade bonds, fallen angels, or Chinese papers. Why it was called Chinese papers? Because it was very popular in China as they gained dominancy, they gained conglomeracy. And what happened was, this wave of there was a wave, a mergers and acquisition wave in the US around the year of 1980s and 1990s. And a lot of these were financed with junk bonds, and it actually resulted in a collapse, in a downturn of the economy. Why? Well, because these are bonds, these are debt instruments, and after they buy the company, it when you buy something such as a company, there's really no guarantee whether this purchase is going to be a good one or a bad one. So when you buy it using debt, you can imagine the debt structure of the ending game, or the end of the new company that is formed. So yeah, so you're betting when you do a leveraged buyout, when you sell junk bonds, which comes with a it is basically where an acquirer only uses 10% of its own money, and 90% of the purchase is coming from debt. Yeah. So they're very confident that this is going to go through. Yeah. They're very confident that the merger or the acquisition is going to be successful and be able to repay the 90% debt. But of course, nothing is certain. Yeah. You could be wrong. And so this becomes very dangerous. How does Islam view this? Of course, it's haram because we prohibit riba. Yeah, so you can't borrow or using interest to buy another company. Yeah. Value enhancing actions. Okay, a company is likely a takeover target when it is grossly undervalued and there is a major discrepancy between the price and intrinsic value of a company, caused by managerial decisions that are not in the best interest of the shareholders and betrays the shareholder wealth maximization objective. Okay, now we're interested in now we become interested in knowing regarding hostile takeovers. Yeah, remember, a hostile takeover is a situation where the target is not willing to be bought, is not willing to be taken over. Yeah, then the question becomes, how can it happen? Yeah, how does it happen? Has it ever happened before in Indonesia? Actually, yes, it has happened quite recently, actually. Yeah, so how it happened is usually there's usually the market views, yeah, or the a potential buyer views that it's being undervalued, meaning the price at which the target's company is trading in the market is really too cheap compared to its intrinsic value. What does that mean? Compared to the assets that the target company has, compared to the history that they have, compared to the customer base, compared to the technology, compared to the patent that they hold, we can see that the trading value or the market price per share of the target company is too low. Then this invites these predators, yeah, predator, to say, ooh, I could just buy a majority of these shares and then vote out the managements and replace it with my own management. This is a hostile takeover. And how this could happen is usually because, yeah, how it gets undervalued so much in the market is usually, yeah, a lot of times is because there are drama, ya, ada kejadian, ya, there's bad press, bad publicity regarding the target company. A good example would be what happened with PT 3 Pilar Sejahtera Food terbuka, ya, mereka jual beras, produsen beras. Do you remember what happened to them that made their share price drop in the market? What happened to them? Ada yang tahu? Baca berita? Ada di berita? They were caught, ya, oke, saya jawab sendiri. They were caught, mereka tertangkap melakukan pengoplosan beras. Ya, so they were being dishonest to their customers when they claim they sell a certain grade of rice, ya, berasnya grade apa, tapi ternyata sama mereka campur dengan grade yang lebih rendah. Ya, ketahuan, terbukti, ribut, rame, the share price tanks, ya, drops. Yeah, and then what happens is ada yang melakukan hostile takeover, ya, ada yang membeli, and immediately replaces the management, yeah, and then tries to fix the image, yeah. Actually, right now, the case is still ongoing because the old management who did the oplosan beras is actually proven to have made the EY, Ernst & Young consultant, has also found that they've also engaged in balance sheet frauds, yeah, financial statement frauds, yeah. So mereka membengkakkan jumlah piutang dan lain sebagainya so that their balance sheet would look strong. Yeah, so right now the investigation is still going on, but basically they've been taken over in a hostile way. Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the reasons, and you have to remember that one valuation model. One way that this could happen is also, remember, one valuation model is using the dividend growth model. So you look at as a market participant, you look at the dividends that are being paid by the company, and then using the dividends figure, yeah, you present it to the value plus the capital gains that you think you would get, yeah. Well, sometimes there are companies that don't pay as much dividends. They would rather sit on a large cash reserve, yeah. Therefore, because the market use a valuation based on dividends, then it becomes too low as to the potential of the target company, yeah. Okay, and of course, when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, it's not just the shareholders that you should pay attention to, yeah, that you should think of when making the decision. The employees, yeah, the employees are very important, because what do you think is the major potential implication for employees when there's a mergers and an acquisition? Apa? Layoffs. Yeah, there could be potential layoffs because you're merging operations. Yeah, you're merging two businesses. Sometimes some areas, some functions may overlap. Yeah, and when they overlap, yeah, you may say that it overlaps, but actually in reality that will translate into layoffs. Yeah, PHK. Yeah, now this becomes a concern. Yeah, how do we how does the Sharia perspective deal with this? Well, basically they say to honor contracts. What contract did you have with your current employee? Do you promise to give them a certain sovereign payout if they get terminated before a certain period? Yeah. So basically the Sharia guards us to not be dolim. Yeah, if it's necessary, then you need to, not if it's necessary, but you need to definitely honor the contract, because the contract is a promise. A promise must be fulfilled. Otherwise, you conduct a sin. Yeah. Okay. Now, so that was the raiders' perspective. Now let's take the target's perspective. Ya, sebagai target ini tadi, ya, seperti yang perusahaan beras tadi, ya, sebagai target, ya. As a target of a hostile takeover, a lot of times, most of the times, or almost all times, yeah, you don't like it. Yeah, you don't like it. Yeah. Jadi in the news you can read that the management of PT Tiga Pilar Sejahtera Food Tbk, in one of the press conferences, he actually walked out of the room and he started screaming. He started screaming, like losing his cool. Yeah, losing his calm. He started screaming and basically announcing that they're trying to do us wrong. They're trying to make a hostile takeover. It was very clear that he was unhappy. Why? Because he's losing his job. Yeah, he's gonna get replaced. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So basically, a majority of the targets, they want to avoid being taken over this way. If they were going to merge or being acquired, then it should be a long term. It should go through a process PDKT. Yeah, they should, both parties, both companies should sit down together, align their objectives, yeah, and then make a deal as to what's best for both. That's the ideal way. But when it's hostile, then boro boro. There's no such thing as sitting down and talking about it. It's hostile. It's a surprise. It's an attack. Yeah. So 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 in reality, what we observe is a lot of times the target companies, they try to defend themselves. Yeah. So now we're interested in these defense strategies. Yeah. Generally speaking, uh, what they do is they try to make themselves look less attractive. Yeah. They try to push away the potential buyers, the attackers, the raiders. Yeah. By making themselves look less attractive. No, no, you don't want to buy me. I'm not as attractive as you think I am. Yeah, so go away, go away. How do they do this? Yeah, so this is like a war strategy. Yeah, how do they do this? Is through stock manipulation. Yeah, what they do is basically they try to do corporate actions, stock actions. Yeah, to basically try to dilute the percentage of ownership of the firm by the hostile forces. Yeah, what that means is, do you know what dilution is? Stock dilution. What is stock dilution? Ada yang bisa jelaskan what stock dilution is? Hello. Does anyone know what a stock dilution is? No? Okay. Imagine a piece of pie. Yeah. A piece of pie, it's round. Yeah. Or a piece of pizza. Yeah. A piece of pie. Yeah. Because it's a piece of pie. Yeah. When you're a corporate and you're straight and you have shareholders, yeah, who are owners of the pie, it's sliced. You have 8 shareholders, for example, then it's sliced. You have 4 pieces of the pie. You slice it up until you have 8 pieces. The size of the company stays the same, yeah, but it's sliced in such a way that you have 8 pieces. Yeah. If yeah, then the trick is to do some corporate actions so that it is, once the acquirer comes in, sure, the size of the pie gets bigger, but now it's sliced in such a way that it will result in 22 slices. Therefore, each slice is actually smaller. That's stock dilution. Yeah. And this becomes less attractive for a potential buyer because they know that they're going to get lesser piece of pie. Yeah. Or sometimes, yeah, okay. And then there's also debt manipulation strategy. Yeah. Um, another characteristic for a target company is they must be promising, of course. Yeah. And they don't have a lot of debt. Yeah. They're healthy. Yeah. They don't have a lot of debt. Yeah. Therefore, buyers are very interested in that. Yeah. So sometimes the target finds a solution by, oh, I know, they want to buy us because we're so healthy, because we only have very little debt. Therefore, in order to hush them away, to push them away, let's just borrow a lot and then reduce the firm's borrowing capacity, and therefore making us look less attractive to the raiders. Okay. And another strategy, another technique is by saying that, okay, if you want to buy us, then you have to realize that we have a golden parachute commitment. What is a golden parachute commitment? Basically, it says that um, uh, uh, if you have to lay off employees, then you're going to have to pay them a huge amount of money. And that's going to be the responsibility of the acquiring firm. Yeah. So that's going to be a threat for the potential buyer. Yeah. And then another one is amending corporate bylaws. This is basically tweaking around with law. Basically, it is trying to uh, retain as long as possible the present management foothold in the company. Yeah. And another way is to do a campaign or a public relations strategy. Yeah. Basically, remember the reason that you become a target in the first place is because you're undervalued. Yeah. These raiders think that you're too cheap. You're a good deal. You're so good. You're so potential. You're so promising, yet you're selling at a cheap price. Therefore, they're interested in kicking you out, kicking your management out. So another strategy would be to do a campaign or a public relations strategy in such a way that you think this will push the share price up. Yeah, I don't know, maybe announce a new plan. Yeah, announce your 5-year plan is going to be such and such. Yeah, uh, do something, say something positive to bring or to to create a positive sentiment in the market and therefore resulting in increase in price. Yeah. If it's not a lie, then it's not. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes, yeah, these targets not only do they defend themselves pakai tameng, yeah, or all these different means of protection, sometimes they even fight back. Yeah. And this is where we start discussing about counter attack strategies. Yeah. Um, uh, uh, there's a strategy called the Pac-Man defense. Sometimes it's also called the double Pac-Man. Pac-Man is quite a classic game. Maybe a lot of you are familiar with it. Basically, there's a point where you can actually you're being chased by ghosts, but then there's a point when if you get a certain power, then you can turn around and then you eventually eat the ghost. Yeah. Well, this is the case. Yeah. So when you become a target, yeah, it could be the case when you suddenly turn around and then you make a bid on the potential buyer. Yeah. So it's like a surprise. Yeah. You want to buy me? Guess what? No, I'm going to buy you. Yeah. I don't remember, but it has happened before. Lupa saya tulis. Saya lupa. But it has happened before. I'll give you an example later on. It has happened before, and actually, the end game becomes the target buys the acquirer. Yeah. So if you're going to buy me, I don't want to be the passive party. I want to be the dominant party. So I'm going to buy you instead. Yeah. It's very interesting. And another strategy, yeah, a fighting back strategy is called the scorched earth policy. Yeah. Basically, this is quite extreme. Yeah. Because you're being a target. Then basically what they do is, okay, they see me as attractive because I'm wearing this crown. Yeah, because there's a jewel on my crown. Yeah. So what I'm going to do to make me less shiny is I'm going to get rid of the jewelry on my crown. So I'm going to sell off my assets. It's called an asset strip. Yeah. I'm going to sell off my asset. Yeah. Not just any asset, but my most valuable asset. Yeah. So I'm no longer attractive to you. Yeah. Now this is very dangerous. Yeah. It could, a lot of times it leads into bankruptcy. Yeah. It's called the price of freedom. Yeah. You want freedom so much because you don't want to be owned by another company. In order to do that, you spin off a very valuable business unit to you. You sell it off. And then in the long run, it turns out that your decision to spin off that business unit is actually suicide. You cannot operate, you cannot be profitable be without that business unit. Okay. And of course, once again, who's at a loss? Of course, the shareholders. Yeah. And then there's another strategy called green mail. Basically, green mail means it's a combination of green paper, green paper and blackmail, basically, and then we call it green mail. Basically what they do is, okay, a target is going to buy us, so I'm going to basically pay them. It's like bribery. I'm going to make a standstill agreement whatsoever, and then I'm going to pay them so that they will stop trying to buy us, and then eventually go away. Now, how does Islam view these sort of strategies? Basically, most of these strategies are unethical and they have no place in the Islamic framework. A valid response would be everything that's legal. You take a legal action, counterattack. You take a legal action. You hire a lawyer and then you bring your case. Okay, you think if this is were to happen, this is what's going to blah 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 and so on and so forth. In Indonesia right now, we don't have a clear law regarding hostile takeovers, so it gets messy. It gets messy, but unfortunately, a lot of these things are prohibited in Islam. So it's a big job for us to be so that they don't. Okay, these are the last topics. The last topic that I want to discuss is, okay, so hope you get an idea how ethics, it's not just the law, whether you abide by the law or you breach the law, but ethics becomes a very major concern when it comes to mergers and acquisitions. Ethics. What's the right thing to do? Not the legal thing to do, but the right thing to do. Therefore, we try to come up with frameworks to decide what's the right thing to do. Let's start with the conventional frameworks. Okay. The first one is called the market ethic framework. What basically what this means is basically what not to do and what to do in a mergers and an acquisition attempt is basically depends on the market reaction. Period. Okay, what does that mean? It means if the market reacts positively, meaning the share price of both the acquirer and the target company increases, then that's enough. It means then it's true that the merger or the acquisition of the companies results in a synergy as indicated by the market price. We believe in the market price so much. So if there's an increase, then that's it. We're happy. It's a success. However, what is the major criticism for this? The major criticism is that now it seems that you only care about your shareholders. You don't care about your employees, your suppliers. You ignore the human side. You ignore the fact that there could be layoffs. You ignore the fact that what about the full economic effect? What about the fact that, let's say, now they gain monopoly? And therefore it will affect the well-being of the other players in the market. What about that? And also the biggest concern is that, you know what, the stock market can be a crazy place. And you want to trust it 100% based on the market sentiment? Well, the market can be a crazy place, meaning you cannot explain the market behavior sometimes. There are a lot of anomalies in the market. So that's the biggest criticism for this framework. And then another conventional framework is called the utilitarianism. Yeah. Basically, what this framework says is in determining what's right and what's not right to do in mergers and acquisitions is basically we believe in the greatest good for the greatest number. Yeah. So that means, yeah, the ethical M&A is based not only on the fact in which the equity will have on stock prices and respective. The ethics is dependent on the facts which the merger will have on all involved stakeholders, including direct claimants such as shareholders, customers, suppliers, and employees, and indirect claimants such as competitors, local communities, and general public and affected governments. So basically, basically what this framework says is as long as it benefits the greater society, then it's the best. For example, yeah, an extreme, but however, the criticism, so basically mengutamakan kepentingan umum daripada kepentingan pribadi, manfaat seluas-luasnya. But then a main criticism becomes like this. Let's say, for example, in an economy, yeah, an economy of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, yeah, there are, let's say, 15 richest people. Yeah. 15 people with the most wealth, with the most amount of money. Yeah. So according to this principle, the best thing to do was to strip these 15 people out of their wealth. Ya, diambil kekayaan dari 15 orang ini and then distribute them to all of the rest. So you're sacrificing the well-being of a group of people for the sake of the majority. Yeah. In the Sharia perspective, this is incorrect. This is unjust. This is unfair because every being, every human being, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, you have rights in the eyes of Allah. Yeah. Allah guarantees your rights. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, you are entitled to your rights. So it's not right to sacrifice the 15 of the richest people for the good of the majority. Yeah. Therefore, an Islamic framework for evaluating a mergers and acquisition would be first, yeah, this is quite straightforward. First, there are elements that have strict guidelines in Islam. For example, riba-based transactions is not to be used in mergers and acquisitions. So there's no such thing as selling junk bonds. There's no such thing as leveraged buyouts. Yeah, or the violation of contracts is also prohibited in Islam. Yeah. However, yeah, there are some areas that do not have rules and regulations in the Quran and in the Hadith. Therefore, when we face these situations, we use the maslahah and mursalah framework. Yeah, what basically is basically what it is basically you think about the manfaat, you think about the benefit. Yeah, you always think about the benefit. Yeah, so comparing it to the utilitarianism, we don't sacrifice the 15. Yeah. Instead, yeah, we try to fulfill the basic necessity of everyone. Yeah, including the 15 people. You don't sacrifice them completely, but we try to fulfill the requirements for them to lead a normal life. Yeah, and we try to do this for everyone, for the shareholder, for the customers, for the suppliers, for the government. You try to fulfill the basic requirements. None of them should sacrifice for one another. You fulfill each and every one of them. Yeah. Okay. Therefore, compared to utilitarianism, it forces a much deeper analysis, and right now it's still wide open for discussion. Yeah, not many papers, not many research is done on this. So it's a very interesting topic. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. Do you have any questions? I'll take 2 questions. Ada pertanyaan? Silakan. Halo, ada pertanyaan? Tidak ada? Okay, if there are no questions, then let's end today's session. Yeah, and I will see you next week. Don't forget, yeah, be prepared to talk about your paper. Yeah, semuanya. There are 18 of you, I think. Every one of you need to be prepared because I'm going to call you randomly. Yeah, I'm going to call you randomly. Yeah, but everyone needs to be prepared to present their paper. Yeah, highlights saja. So not a maximum of 10 minutes each person. Yeah, jadi maksimal 10 menit. Yeah. Okay. All right. So please practice so that you can allocate 10 minutes for your paper. Yeah, and that's going to be next week. Okay. That's all from me. Okay, so let's close today's session by reciting the kafaratul majlis. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Right, everyone? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi